We Aborigines are living in Australia. 40,000 years ago, people were coming from southern Asia down to Australia, and these are the Aborigines today, the descendants of them, and they are maybe the oldest surviving human group. In the 18th century, there were 300,000 Aborigines living in Australia, but when European people came there and they had diseases, and 80% of the Aborigines died then, and until the 1970s, 80% died and only 45,000 were living. Some of them are still living in the north and east part of Australia, most of them then, a few who do it, a nomadic life, with hunting, with spears and boomerangs, and also gathering of roots, and they are doing paintings and tattooing and carving, their skill and these things. And most of the Aborigines are living in the towns in Australia or are working on cattle ranges. And some are also doing a bit of the traditional life, and they are sometimes walking, sometimes a long distance, to corporees, and they are singing and dancing and storytelling happening. That is according to the Reader's Digest Library of Modern Knowledge Book 2, Part 8, Man and Society, written by C. Edward Hughes, Justin Emily, Kurt Peter Lloyds, Lucy Mech, David Martin, Jacqueline Sesby, Ruth D. Whithouse, J.C. Woodburn, on the page 446. Hi and welcome. I'm trying to learn anthropology. Today the Aborigines, and after that the Acheulian, and after we've done that we're going to do leg injury prevention training. And if you participate in the leg injury prevention training, that is at your own risk. And the book is from the 70s, and it's a British book. I wanted to say something more. I didn't want it to go up, but why so much? Aborigines, wandering, hunting tribemen who migrated into Australia from southern Asia about 40,000 years ago. So 40,000 years ago, people went from southern Asia over to Australia. And they are possibly the oldest surviving human group. About 300,000 Aborigines lived in the Australian continent when people arrived in the 18th century. By the early 1970s, disease had reduced the number of these Aborigines to about 45,000. So 40,000 years, people were coming from southern Asia over to Australia, and these people are maybe the oldest surviving human group, and they were living in the 18th century. In the 18th century, 300,000 people, but then until the 70s, when this book was written, many had died from diseases who were brought in by people from Europe. And today, or in the 1970s, only 45,000 people were living there, so 80% less. Today, only a few Aborigines retain their nomadic life, and they live mostly in the northeast desert region of Australia. So only a few people of the Aborigines living the nomadic life in the northeast of Australia, and some of them are hunting with spears and boomerangs and gathering roots and clubs. They are skilled at rock painting, tattooing and carving. So a small portion of the Aborigines today, of the 45,000, live in the northeast, or in the 70s when this book was written, and some people are still living a nomadic life with hunting, for example, with spears and boomerangs. And they are also skilled at the rock painting, tattooing and carving. Most Aborigines now live in towns or work as stockmen on cattle ranches, but most Aborigines are living in the towns or working on cattle ranches. But they retain some features of their traditional life, still walking many miles to attend the corroboree. I don't really know if I want to know if it's safe, but it's a beautiful word, corroboree. Corroboree. I'm not really able to pronounce properly, but corroboree. Now, some people still walking many miles to attend the corroboree, which is an ancient ceremony involving storytelling, singing and dancing. Most Aborigines are living in towns or working on cattle farms, but some Aborigines also going to traditional corporees, where singing, dancing and storytelling. I think I have the information together. I'm going to start the second camera and I try to set it. The Aborigines. 40,000 years ago, people were coming from Southern Asia over to Africa, to Australia, and these are the Aborigines, and they are maybe the oldest surviving human group. In the 70s, when this book was written, there were 300,000 Aborigines living, but when until the 1970s, on the following 200 years, 80% died of them through diseases which came from the European people who came to Australia, and only 45,000 were living in the 1970s. Now, and some of them are living in the north and east part, still in nomadic life, with hunting with spears and boomerangs, and also are they gathering, and also are they doing rock paintings and carvings and tattooing. But the most of the Aborigines are living in the towns and many are working on cattle farms. And what was the other thing? The corporate part. The Aborigines are living in Australia. 40,000 years ago, people were coming from Southern Asia down to Australia, and these are the Aborigines today, the descendants of them, and they are maybe the oldest surviving human group. In the 18th century, there were 300,000 Aborigines living in Australia, but when European people came there and they had diseases, and 80% of the Aborigines died then, and until the 1970s, 80% died and only 45,000 were living. Some of them are still living in the north and east part of Australia, most of them then, a few who do it, and nomadic life, with hunting with spears and boomerangs and also gathering of roots, and they are doing paintings and tattooing and carving their skills and these things. And most of the Aborigines are living in the towns in Australia or are working on cattle ranges. And some are also doing a bit of the traditional life, and they are sometimes walking, sometimes a long distance, to corporees, and they are singing and dancing and storytelling happening. That is according to the Reader's Digest Library of Modern Knowledge, Book 2, Part 8, Man and Society, written by C. L. Bader Hughes, Justin Emily, Kurt Peter Lloyds, Lucy Mech, David Martin, Jacqueline Setsby, Ruth D. Whithouse, J.C. Woodburn, on the page 446. I'm going to stop camera. And the other thing. Acheulian. The Acheulian were a culture of the European Stone Age, dated at about 200,000 years ago and named after the type site of Saint Acheules in France. Acheulian hand axes were produced by using a flecking tool instead of a hammerstone of the Aborigine culture. I don't know what a flecking tool is. Now, and I don't know if they used as the axe blade the hammerstone or flecking tool, or if a flecking tool or the hammerstone was used to make the blade for the axe. But the information: the Acheulian lived 200,000 years ago in France at Saint Acheulian, and there it's in France, and in the town Saint Acheulian, where the remains were found of them, so they are called the Acheulians. And there's not that much known or said here. They were doing hand axes, for example, with flecking tools. The Aborigines were doing them with hammerstones. Acheulian. Acheulian. So I'll start the camera again. The Acheulian lived 200,000 years ago in France at a region called Saint Acheulian. Now, at that Saint Acheulian, there were remains found, that is why they're called the Acheulians. And there's not much said in the book, just that they were doing hand axes out of flecking tools instead of hammer tools as the Aborigines were doing. That is according to the Reader's Digest Library of Modern Knowledge, Book 2, Part 8, Man and Society, written by C.R. Beddock, Hugh Johnson, Emily Court, Peter Lloyds, Lucy Mack, David Martin, Jacqueline Sesby, Ruth D. Whithouse, J.C. Woodburn, on the page 446. I think I just said 449. And if you think it is a flecking tool, and the Ebevelan. Okay, I have no idea how to pronounce it. I'm going to stop the camera. And let's go to the anthropology part. If you were here for anthropology, then you can go directly to the next part of anthropology, or however it is actually called, if you stay here and participate in the leg injury prevention training minutes with the others. Good and stable standing stance, and swing one leg in front and to the side. The goalkeeper preparing for the goal kick exercise. And the other leg in front and to the side. One foot in front and back. The other one in front and back. And now, one leg up, to the side, breathe in, out into the middle and down. Upper one up, to the side, breathe in, middle and down. Leg up, hands up, and cross. Cross, middle and down. Change, cross, cross, middle and down. One leg up and press up and to the side with the knee. Other leg. And now stand good on one leg. This exercise can go onto the knee. Turn slowly over. Come down to the knee. Turn controlled and slowly again over. Other leg, stand good. Turn over. Slowly down. Controlled over. And over. Next exercise can go again onto the knee. Stand good and reach always with the heel to imaginary 90-minute intervals on an imaginary dial, a clock exercise. Other leg, so 12 o'clock, 1:30 and 3, 10:30 and 9 and 7:30 and 6 o'clock and 4:30 and also 3 o'clock. Next exercise, the pin peg. Don't do it if you're pregnant. Heel onto the ground, lift the heel off the ground, place it again onto the ground. And change. Our heel onto the ground. The whole movement comes out of hips. And now, one leg up and down. Other one up and down. A stamp. Now the horse. Leg in, out. And now if you like the camel, the whole body moves up and down. Now if you like and can, the whole leg swings. Try to be tall up with the standing leg. And not to fall in the abdomen. And the last one. And change. First the horse, leg in and out. And if you like and can, the camel, leg in and out completely. And if you like and can, the whole leg. One more now. And next wide part. Breathing it out. And breathing it out. Again, in and up. Good. Breathing across the legs. And breathing it out. It was leg injury prevention training. I thank you very much, and until next time.